You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is firefighter Raphael Poirier from Firehouse Subs. Introducing new Firehouse Pairs. Pair your favorite small sub with a signature side, like the awesome 5-cheese mac and cheese. And remember, a portion of every purchase at Firehouse Subs goes towards helping first responders. Firehouse Subs. Enjoy more subs, save more lives. Participating locations only, Firehouse Subs will donate a minimum of $1 million in 2019 to the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation by donating 0.11% of every purchase.
USA Radio News with Rick Vincent.
President Donald Trump is expressing confidence that a new trade deal can be worked out with Japan, possibly by next month. Hosting Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe at the White House, the president also talked about selling military equipment to Japan.
Trade as it relates to our two countries, Japan is buying a tremendous amount of military equipment and other equipment from the United States. We make the greatest jet fighters in the world.
Mr. Trump wants Japan to move towards a bilateral free trade agreement, but Japan has been reluctant, preferring instead an accord that includes several countries. President Trump told a supportive National Rifle Association audience during a rally-like speech in Indianapolis Friday that he's backing out of the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty. The treaty, which former President Barack Obama signed in 2013 but was never ratified by Congress, is supposed to regulate conventional weapon sales to keep weapons from the hands of human rights abusers. You're listening to USA Radio News. Former Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden, in his first interview since launching his third presidential campaign, went on ABC's The View, where he was asked how he's going to get voters.
I think just by making the case that we have to restore dignity to work. We have to restore dignity to the way we treat people.
Biden's campaign says within 24 hours of officially joining the race, they've raised $6.3 million. U.S. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein raised eyebrows Thursday night with a private speech in which he took a swipe at the Obama administration and slammed ex-FBI boss James Comey. Rosenstein, who supervised the Mueller investigation, spoke out publicly for the first time since that report was released, criticizing the Obama administration's real-time reaction to Russian hacking and its decision not to publicize the full story to the American people. The New York Times reports Oliver North, president of the NRA, has asked Chief Executive Wayne LaPierre to step down amid challenges over the group's fundraising and nonprofit status. This is USA Radio News. New economic numbers have the administration happy about the way things are going. USA Radio Network's Tim Berg explains.
After a slow end to last year, the Department of Commerce says the GDP grew 3.2% in the first quarter of 2019. Director of the National Economic Council, Larry Kudlow, tells Fox News President Trump's economic policies, such as lowering taxes and regulation, are working.
The first quarter is supposed to be the worst quarter of the year, so it comes in at 3.2%. Tells me, among other things, that the prosperity cycle we have entered into is continuing. It's strong.
This comes at a time when countries in Europe and Asia are posting troubling gross domestic product reports. Hundreds of students and staffers at the California State University, LA, possibly exposed to measles, are under quarantine. While speaking with reporters, Dr. Barbara Fair, director of LA County Health Department, said those under the quarantine order must remain at home or in a designated setting and must not attend school or work outside that designated setting.
If they have medical appointments or some other urgent matter that requires that they leave the home, they need to notify the public health department before they do that, and they have a number to call so that they can get assistance in making sure as they travel they don't inadvertently risk exposing others to measles.
Quarantines are also in place at the University of California, LA. For USA Radio News, I'm Rick Vincent.
This is firefighter Raphael Porriette for Firehouse Subs. Introducing new Firehouse Pairs. Pair your favorite small sub with a signature side, like the awesome 5-cheese mac and cheese. And remember, a portion of every purchase at Firehouse Subs goes towards helping first responders. Firehouse Subs. Enjoy more subs, save more lives. Participating locations only. Firehouse Subs will donate a minimum of $1 million in 2019 to the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation by donating 0.11% of every purchase. This is firefighter Raphael Porriette for Firehouse Subs. Introducing new Firehouse Pairs. Pair your favorite small sub with a signature side, like the awesome 5-cheese mac and cheese. And remember, a portion of every purchase at Firehouse Subs goes towards helping first responders. Firehouse Subs. Enjoy more subs, save more lives. Participating locations only. Firehouse Subs will donate a minimum of $1 million in 2019 to the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation by donating 0.11% of every purchase.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
I take a breath, I'm not gonna lose. This is what I came here to do.
Keep on doing what you do, Rick. You're my favorite host. Favorite.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
Good evening, America, and welcome to the program. I am Rick Robinson. It is Friday night, April 26th, and you are listening to KLRNradio.com. We are live. We are here. This is America Off the Rails. This is the every other Friday edition of the America Off the Rails. Funny thing is, so last hour we were doing the Red Wine Show. The ladies left me alone and unsupervised, which was scary. They should be afraid. They're probably going to freak out when they listen to the show. But so anyway, they were supposed to do a show. There was a weather issue for one of them, and the other one was caught up in a meeting. So it just wound up being me and CyberSec Princess Lou. So go check out the show later if you haven't listened to it yet. But the funny thing is, so I let a little secret out of the bag. So everybody knows that I've been doing political talk now through Facebook pages, writing, streaming, in some instances in terrestrial, off and on for about 11 years now. But back when I really first started thinking about doing some form of a radio show, whether it was streaming or whatever, because back when I first started talking about doing this, even Live 365 was like dial-up, and you could have like 5 people listening, which was huge back then, by the way. It's funny how much this has all changed. But so anyway, I let a secret out of the bag last hour. That basically, when I really first started talking about doing this, political talk was not my first exposure to talk radio, really. I didn't really become familiar with talk radio as a genre. Honestly, I take that back. Political talk radio was my first exposure because of Rush Limbaugh. I listened to Rush Limbaugh. I think I found him junior year in high school. But I didn't find him on the radio first because I didn't know about him on the radio. That was back when he did a TV show for like 2 years. So he introduced me to the idea of political talk on a TV show, and then I found him on the radio and listened to him. But as I got older, when I started my own business and I started working nights and pulling night shifts, and I found Coast to Coast AM back when it was hosted by Art Bell. And I let a secret out of the bag last hour that honestly, when I was first really toying with the idea of doing a radio show, I kind of toyed with that kind of a format. I've still toyed with it from time to time, but I've always been too afraid that it might hurt the political brand. But at the same time, I do so many different shows now and so many different styles, I'm starting to think maybe one more really won't hurt. And just talking about it last hour kind of reignited that with me, and I'm thinking, we already kind of do a one-off every 2 weeks of Off the Rails, so why do that when we could do, because honestly guys, I can do a political show in my sleep. I eat it, I sleep it, I'm involved in it all the time. Everybody I talk with is usually politics, so if I'm going to start doing the other kind of show, it's going to take research. So once every 2 weeks is probably all I could pull off. So I'm kind of toying with the idea of maybe kind of dusting off the old ideas just to see what we can do with it. But I don't know. It's just, it's as my dad liked to say when I was younger, this is still in the wild hair phase, so don't hold your breath. But anyway, so another thing that kind of sparked that, and we'll be talking about this more in depth second half of the show. Those of you that are following along from home may have noticed the title there's of the show, which is The Truth Is Out There. There's more than one way to take that, but there's also a news story that just broke earlier today that we'll be talking about a little bit more in second half of the show, and that's kind of where this came from, because some of you don't know this, but I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. I grew up watching things like Star Trek, and, even though I missed being able to see the original Star Trek live, one of my favorite early childhood memories, I was probably 3 or 4 years old. One of the first things I can actually remember, short of, crawling around on the floor, because I do have some memories of that, which weirded my parents out, by the way. They're like, you're not old, you shouldn't be able to remember things. But I was able to describe, like, the carpet color and the house that we lived in when I was, like, 8 or 9 months old, and they're like, you shouldn't, and we don't, anyway. But I also learned to read at age 3.5, so I've always been a little bit ahead of the curve. That freaked my parents out too, by the way. I'm sitting in the living room, they're watching TV, I have a Dr. Seuss book. Things in a People House, by the way, was the first book that I ever read. And I sat there and I was kind of thumbing through the pictures, and I went all the way back to the front page, and I said the first word of the book. And my mom just about had a heart attack. She's like, he's only 3 and he's reading. She was terrified because they like to spell things in front of me at that age, and they figured out they probably weren't going to be able to do that much longer. I'm pretty sure that was the reason. But so anyway, so I bring all of this up because, like I said, one of my first really, more than just a bit and piece or a fragment, was sitting on my dad's lap watching Star Trek. Probably at about age 3 or 4-ish. when it was in rerun phases at that point. So I've always been into sci-fi, and I've always been into things like UFOs and all that stuff, and that's, that's, I would say that probably got supplanted by politics only because, politics was easier to get involved in. So I would say politics first, this stuff second. But same time, there's this news story that came out about Navy pilots that we'll be talking about second half. This is already basically my second hour for tonight. But anyway, so to the first part of what I want to talk about tonight. First of all, I have to give a shout out, Boomer Sooner. So for the second year in a row, an OU Sooner quarterback has gone first round draft pick. Congrats, Kyler Murray, who is now going to be playing for the Arizona Cardinals. That is actually, I believe, only the second time in history that the people from the same position from the same schools were picked in back-to-back drafts, I think. But I'm not a huge football guy, so I might be getting that wrong. I am a huge Norman fan, however. I do love me some Sooner football. I like college ball a lot more than I like professional. Although, as I've been kind of watching a lot of these players that have moved in from the Sooners going off to play professional ball, I do find myself getting more invested in it now because I watch their careers and I've seen what they've done. And unfortunately, a lot of them have gone on and then just been kind of, they're here. But Mayfield was on fire last year, so I'm kind of curious to see what he's going to do this year. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with Kyler Murray. So, I don't know. I know right now conservatives aren't supposed to like the NFL, because of the whole kneeling thing. Look, I don't have an issue with the players expressing themselves. I just wish they did it as much off the field as they do on the field. Because they have so many other ways that they could be getting people's attention. So I don't know. I'll probably catch some flack because I'm talking about watching the NFL. I don't care. I don't watch that much of it anyway. Truth be told, somebody's going to yank my man card over this, but my wife is a bigger football fan than I am. So that should tell you something. I've always really enjoyed watching college ball, but for me, it's kind of like baseball. I really, really like baseball, but I can't watch it on TV because I fall asleep. Same thing with football. I enjoy watching it in person. There's something about being in the arena and kind of feeding off the energy from the crowd, and that really helps me get into it. Like, I like if we're going to have, like, football watch parties and people come over and it's just more than me and my wife and my kids hanging out watching football. To me, that's fun. But if it's just, lazy Sunday afternoon, football's on, I'm going to lay down on the couch. Next thing you know, game's going to be over. My wife's going to be like, you missed the best play ever. And I'm like, that's what YouTube's for. But yeah, so anyway. So other big news. So for those of you who've been living under a rock, you may not know that Joe Biden announced yesterday. So Joe Biden, in his first 24 hours, I believe, raised more than the last total I saw was around $24 million. Largest donation average was around $46. Now this is a big deal for the Democrats because they feel like that was a really good first chunk. It's also a big deal for the Democrats because they're feeling re-energized now because they watched CNN have an orgy behind the news desk when Biden announced, and now they've had Chris Matthews have another tingle moment. We talked about a little bit of this first hour, so if you're tuning in again, it's going to be a repeat, but it was something I planned on talking about on the show anyway, so we're still talking about it now. Don't like it? Go find something else. There's nothing on TV right now anyway. Most of you are probably out watching Endgame anyway, and I hate you because I probably won't get to watch it till it comes on demand because I don't have time to go to the movies anymore. And honestly, that's another thing that's changed for me. And this is going to sound super sappy, but one of the people that I used to really enjoy going to the movies with was my father-in-law. Because he really got into certain movies like Star Wars and the Marvel movies and the Hobbit movies. Actually, one of the last movies that I was able to take him to before he passed was the final Lord of the Rings movie. And unfortunately, he died several years ago. Sadly, he was hospitalized right about the time the new Star Trek movies had come out, and he had gotten to go home. They'd put him on hospice because they were afraid that, the end was nigh. And then he had such a great day the second day that he was home that I'd started making plans with my boys to take the new Star Trek movie over and watch it with him. And he died the next day. Apparently, there's a phenomenon that I was not familiar with for people that are on their deathbed. They typically have what's called a twilight day, where they basically, they kind of recoup for usually about a day, maybe sometimes two, and they look like they're fully on the mend, and they usually have a really great day, and then they say or do whatever they needed to say or do, and that's it. They're going home. So for me, movie theaters have always been kind of bittersweet since then. I mean, I've still gone to movies. My wife and I, the last movie my wife and I saw together was The Mule with Clint Eastwood. But, in a lot of ways, going to those type of movies now is just not nearly as much fun as it used to be. That and I hate to sound old, but movie tickets have gotten so damned expensive. I mean, I remember, I'm sounding like my dad at this point, but I remember when I was a kid, the neighborhood movie theater was like 5 blocks down, and I could walk down on a summer day with a $5 bill, get, the movie ticket, a drink, and a popcorn, and be there for 2-3 hours and be done. And the funny thing is, I remember having that conversation with my stepdad a few years later, and he was like, "What are you talking about? Back in my day, I could go for a quarter, be there all day, and get all the popcorn and soda I wanted." And I'm like, "What? Seriously?" But yeah, that just shows you how much prices have gone crazy. But so the Democrats are all elated because Biden's announced he's doing the whole starting to give the interviews, and of course you may have heard in the newsreel that opened before the show that we've got to bring decency back to America, and we've got to blah blah. I'm like, ugh, just stop. I said this last night, so I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but you have zero room to talk about decency. You were vice president while the president of the United States went out of his way to bash police, the military, and pretty much anybody else that had anything to do with this country, and you watched cities and towns burn repeatedly for 8 years. So please don't talk to me about bringing civility and decency back to America, because you don't know the first thing about either of those words, sir. Yeah, I said that. I don't care. Because it's the truth. You talk pretty. See, that's the thing that I've kind of figured out. We've gotten used to these people that can put together pretty words and phrases and make us feel good. Donald Trump is not one of those people. He doesn't talk like a politician. He talks like me and you. I said just as much because I was so pissed off because Cruz, during the primary, when Donald Trump was saying that stuff about his wife, you can still, if they haven't pulled it yet, because it may have been archived by now, I put together an op-ed piece on American Action News where I said where I come from. If he had said that about my wife, one of the first things I would have done the next time we were on a stage together is I would have marched up to him, socked him in his jaw, turned around and walked off. But that's just it. Ted Cruz is a politician. He knows not to do those things. Donald Trump is not a politician. So when he's mad, everybody knows about it. When he's scared, everybody knows about it because he doesn't know to keep those kind of things close to the vest. He hasn't had the years of training and grooming to do this type of stuff. As a CEO, you don't have to control your emotions. You want your team to know when you're pissed off. You want your team to know when you're worried because you're letting them feel the temperature of the room. Because if the boss is pissed, then everybody better figure out how to fix it or get the hell out of the way. If the boss is scared, then everybody better figure out how to fix it or get the hell out of the way. And that's what he's used to dealing with. He's not a politician. So all of this stuff, that came out around the time of the Mueller report, and they're like, oh my God, look, he knew he was guilty because the headline says that he knew his presidency was over as soon as they announced Mueller. but they took the rest of it out of context because he was raging, because he'd been talking to people that knew, that saw it happen under the Clinton administration, and how pretty much every administration that ever had a special prosecutor got mired into all kinds of crap, and they were never able to get anything done, and they were basically dead in the water. And he said, I am effed. My presidency is over before it started if we get a special prosecutor. Not because he knew he was going to go to jail, because I still submit he didn't do a damn thing wrong. At least not in the realm that they're talking about. Was some of the things that were going on with the campaign a little bit shady? Probably, but please, let's look at the other side if we're going to start talking about shady. They're starting to do that now. I'm starting to see rumblings from people like Rosenstein that are like, why didn't the Obama administration let the public know about what was going on with the Russian interference? And I'm like, where was this question 4 years ago? 3 years ago? Where was it? Why were we not talking about these things before? Well, because, Rick, we were trying to make sure Hillary still got to keep the White House because, the truth is secondary to our agenda. But now that we know she's not going to get the White House anyway, we need to figure out the truth. The truth should never be secondary to anyone's agenda. I don't care what the letter is behind your name. Pardon me. Had a frog in the throat there for a second. Alright, so I realized I've been ranty and we've missed a break. So we're going to keep running because we're about 4 minutes away from the bottom of the hour break anyway. So instead of making you sit through an extra long commercial break, we're just going to keep going for about 3 more minutes. Take the regular bottom of the hour break and we'll make up the one we missed on the second half. So we're going to keep on trucking here. But yeah, so if you haven't noticed, I have a lot to say tonight. It's kind of scary when I get this kind of fired up on a Friday. So now I'm probably not going to be able to sleep till like 3 in the morning on Saturday. Got 3 papers I have to write tomorrow because I'm a procrastinator. And I have homework I have to finish for a college course that I'm taking. And I have like 4 days to get it done. Because, yeah, I still have to do the final 2. Luckily, it's online, so I kind of get to do it at my own pace, so I'll get them knocked out over the weekend, so that's not that terrible of a deal, but still, I don't like homework. It's funny. My kids come by it honest because school was completely different when I was little. I know this is not typically what I'd planned on talking about, but since we're here, when I was younger, they didn't do this, your homework is weighted for some percentage of your grade, your testing is weighted for another percentage of your grade. I could blow off my homework, do my tests, get hundreds, and still get C's. And I didn't care about my grades. So most of the time, I didn't do my homework. Because as long as I was acing my tests, I still got C's. Made my high school transcripts look like crap because I didn't care. But back then, when I started trying to look at my career path, they didn't require college and stuff for the things that I was looking at yet. So it didn't matter. Now you have to have a college degree. I'm surprised they don't have you have a college degree to go to work at McDonald's yet. Because it's I have a friend who applied to the police academy the other day. I think it was in Los Angeles. And he said something about, because, for a while it was they didn't care. Then, like around here, they wanted you to have at least a 2-year degree. They want him, he's like, I have to have a 4-year degree. How does that even work? I mean, granted, you can't go into the police academy until you're 21, but, that's why a 2-year, when they first started making noise about it, a 2-year degree made sense. Because, you get out of college, you get out of high school about 18, you get 2 years worth of, criminal justice coursework, blah, 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 blah. By the time you get out of college, you're just about old enough to go into the academy. But now it's like I hear them start making noise about people needing 4-year degrees to be able to do police work and blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, why? That's part of what's wrong in this country. We suddenly got the idea that part of the American dream involved going to college. And I don't understand that, because not everyone is geared to go to college. I happen to be one of those people. That's why I'm still taking college courses at 46 years old, because I went and did the 2 years worth of college that I needed to do for what I was going to do with my life at that time. That fell apart. I started a business even though I had no clue what I was doing, and I've learned most of how I do business and figure out how to run businesses, not by a degree, but actually doing it. But the problem is none of that stuff counts worth a damn anymore, because when you start trying to go into, different management styles and different things for different companies, they're like, but you don't have a degree. I'm like, but I ran my own business for 15 years, and I managed a team of 60 people, and I ran an elite fugitive recovery team. Why doesn't that count as management skills in your book? Because it doesn't. Okay, well, I was a team lead for a Fortune 500 company for 4 years. Why doesn't that count as management training in your book? Because it doesn't. Anyway. So that's why I am at 46 years old, still chipping away at a 4-year degree. At my own pace, and I will eventually get there or die trying. Not sure which one it's going to be. But I have changed focuses, because if I'm going back to school, I've actually decided I'm going to get a broadcast journalism degree. Because I already do this stuff anyway, and at some point I actually want to be able to do news and be able to do legitimate news, even if I have to build it from the ground up to get it done right. And I don't want anybody to say, but you don't have a degree in journalism. Really? What's this say? Pay no attention to the crayon. It really said... No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, all right. So we are up against a break. We're going to take that... we're going to take the bottom of the hour break. Then we'll make up for the other one that I missed here in a bit. This is America Off the Rails. I am your host, Rick Robinson. When we come back, we're going to talk about some angry naval aviators and what they've done to browbeat the government. This is America Off the Rails. I am your host, Rick Robinson. We will be right back. Don't you dare go away.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and... she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Oh, don't look at me in that tone of voice. You didn't really think we were going to do a segment about UFOs and not open with the X-Files theme. Come on now. Alright, Al, I'm not sure, did you mean my personal number, or were you wanting to try to call into the show? Because I can give you either one, I just wasn't sure which one you meant. Alright, so, anyway, it's now come to our attention that apparently naval aviators have yelled at the federal government to the point where they've now decided that they've put together protocols for reporting UFOs. And of course, what's the fun in talking about that without playing the X-Files theme, because apparently UFOs are real. Now, before anybody freaks out about it, I don't necessarily mean I don't think they mean the same thing that you and I mean when we talk about UFOs, but I could be wrong. So who knows? But the best thing about it is just the fact that now there's all these news stories that are going on and on and on about talking about the Navy, talking about UFOs, and admitting there obviously must be such a thing as UFOs. Alright, so you should see it in the chat now, Al, but it's 405-266-1591. Lines are open, by the way. I don't give it out that often because, you know, most everybody that listens to the show listens to the podcast for some reason. We do get lots of numbers, just not live. I'm not sure why. Probably because we do the show super late. That's honestly another reason why I was kind of thinking of toying with the idea of maybe on Friday nights every other Friday doing something a little different, because, people tune in late for those kind of shows. They don't usually tune in late for political shows. But yeah, so anyway, hang on a second. I'm working on pulling up the article. My computer's not cooperating with me here. I thought I had it pulled up already, but I guess I closed it at some point. Joys of live radio. Sometimes things don't go as planned. So the title of the article is How Angry Pilots Got the Navy to Stop Dismissing UFO Sightings. A recent uptick in sightings of identified flying objects, or as the Navy, or as the military calls them, unexplained aerial phenomena, prompted the Navy to draft formal procedures for pilots to document encounters, a corrective measure that former officials say is long overdue. Since 2014, these intrusions have been happening on a regular basis. This is from Joseph Gradfisher, spokesman for Office of the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare. He told the Washington Post on Wednesday, recently unidentified aircraft have entered military-designated airspace as often as multiple times per month. We want to get to the bottom of this. We need to determine who's doing it, where it's coming from, and what their intent is. We need to try to find ways to prevent it from happening again. Citing safety and security concerns, Gradisher vowed to investigate each and every report. Luis Elizondo, a former senior intelligence officer, told the Post that the new Navy guidelines formalized for the reporting process facilitated data-driven analysis while removing the stigma from talking about UFOs, calling it the single greatest decision the Navy has made in decades. Chris Mellon, a former Deputy Assistant Director of Defense for Intelligence and staffer on the Senate Intelligence Committee, was less laudatory. I don't believe in safety through ignorance, he said, scolding the intelligence community for a lack of curiosity and courage and a failure to react to a strong pattern of sightings. In some cases, pilots, many of whom are engineers and academy graduates, claim to observe small spherical objects flying in formation. Others say they've seen white, tic-tac-shaped vehicles aside from drones. All engines rely on burning fuel to generate power, but these vehicles all had no air intake, no wind, and no exhaust. Interesting. So my question is the Navy admitting that there are UFOs? And actually, I just noticed we seem to have Al on the line. Good evening, Al. How are you? Hang on. I think it's not showing you. Hang on. I can see you talking, but you're not. It's not letting me let you hear anything. Hang on. That's weird. It doesn't show you're muted. Weird. Let me check something. I think I may have you muted on the board. Hang on. Oh, I do, I think. Alright, try it now. Maybe not. Where are you? Why am I not seeing you? How about now?
How about now?
There we go. Now I've got you. I didn't have you routed through the board right. Alright, how you doing, my man? Thanks for calling in.
Hey, I'm doing just fine. I am as fascinated as you are. This is like nerd fest to people like us, right?
Pretty much. It's like UFO Palooza.
Well, and I was reading this, and it's kind of funny because I have done quite a bit of studying on this exact phenomenon over the past few years, and it goes pretty much since we've taken flight. Every armed conflict we've had where we've had airplanes in the skies, there have been reports of UFOs.
Yeah, and you're right. And the scariest thing about that is it's like anybody that reported it, they used to be told they were nuts. They were like, you're suffering from hypoxia or some other crap. It was an optical illusion. I mean, I'm not saying it's aliens, but there's obviously something going on. I mean, in this day and age, with the technology that we have, for them to still be having sightings of unidentified flying objects, seems kind of crazy to me.
Well, and I break it down this way. There's possibility and probability. Is it possible there are visitors from another planet visiting our solar system? Yeah, it's possible. Is it probable? I think no. And I'm going to tell you why I think no. I think this is a phenomenon that has been going on since the beginning of man itself. And if you think about it, now this is just me, we are limited to our five senses. We are limited on our audio spectrum. We are limited on our visual spectrum, our sense of smell, our sense of taste. All of our senses are limited. So the difference between years in the past and now is we are up there, and the technology we have screens out a lot. It filters out a lot of light waves, a lot of different waves. And I wonder if we are seeing stuff that's been up there the whole time, and we just don't know what it is.
It's entirely possible. I mean, not to bring the Bible into this, but, there are actually some unexplained things that are kind of talked about in the Bible, like the flaming chariot that carried off a certain individual, who shall remain nameless for the sake of the show. But, I mean, so it's not like this is a new phenomenon. I mean, in pretty much every religious text, there's some sort of mention of just things that we can't really understand. And I think a lot of it is, again, our understanding is very limited, and I think there's maybe more going on than we realize. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's little green men. I think going back to my whole initial love of shows like Coast to Coast AM, one of the first things I thought was the most interesting, and I think it was the dude that does the alien show on the History Channel now, the one with the poofy hair. I can't think of his name right now. He had
Giorgio.
There we go. He had pointed out that one of the things that he thought was the most interesting was, that if you look at the human rhythm, our internal clock, it's actually set for a 25-hour day. The Earth only has a 24-hour rotation. Mars, on the other hand, has a 25-hour rotation. You figure that out.
Yeah, we are not, we don't belong on this planet.
I mean, people joke about that, but think about it for a second. There are a lot of parallels in nature that would support the very thing that you just said. Think about what happens when a species that is not native to a certain area suddenly comes into that area. They overrun it and take it over. What happens anytime we come into an area on this planet?
Yeah, we overrun it and take it over.
So we can scratch our heads about it, or we can, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying anything about it one way or the other, but you explained to me how if this is our planet of origin, our internal clock is still all of these eons later geared to a 25-hour clock, not a 24.
Okay, well, I'm going to go someplace that you went. I'm going to go back to the Bible. Now, in the Old Testament, and this is where I get the whole phenomenon, how we are limited in our sight, in our sound, in our hearing, in our taste, our smell. And I believe it's Elijah in the Old Testament. The Syrians are advancing on the children of Israel, and Elijah is standing next to a young man, and he's freaking out, and Elijah says, calm down. These people are surrounded right now. If you could see what I could see, you would know that we have this battle. And this young soldier says, what do you mean? Elijah prays. This guy's eyes are open, and he sees, quote, angels of the Lord surrounding the Syrian army and taking them down. Now, to me, that tells me that, even as a young teenager reading this, it put a chill up my spine. Does that mean that we just don't see these beings and they're there, they're up in the sky, they're in the woods, they're around us, and every once in a while something happens and we get a glimpse of somebody that we can't explain? That's the stuff that, to me, makes more sense than people from other planets visiting. Not to say it's not possible, but the probability is we're limited by our five senses, and we're also limited by our arrogance of what our definition of life is. Even if these are aliens, we are set in our ways that we are looking for carbon-based life forms. There may be life forms out there that we can't even perceive because there's something we don't understand yet.
No, I completely agree, and honestly, you've touched on something that I've talked about with other people before. I really do think that not only are there other things out there, but I think the idea that there are multiple dimensions actually comes into play into this, and I don't necessarily mean alternate realities, but I mean that may be the very thing that we're kind of talking about. These people or beings or whatever they are seem to be able to coexist in the same plane that we're in, but they don't always choose to interact with it, or they don't always have the ability to interact with it, but they're always there. And so, I mean, I firmly believe in a lot of what we're talking about right now to be true. One of and I honestly I wrote this in a paper in high school. I got flunked for it. But one of the first things that because, Giorgio wasn't the first guy to mention the 25-hour clock. So during it was one of my science classes, we were told to write a paper on something, and I decided to write an alternate hypothesis for the story of the flood of Noah. And I said, what if it wasn't really a flood? What if we started on Mars, and when that planet was destroyed, we came here, and as the story became passed down from generation to generation, and for some, because we've seen bits and pieces that have indicated that we've had higher levels of technology on this planet than we do right now. And I firmly believe that at some point we went backwards. And so I postulated, what if the story of the flood had more to do with us leaving the planet of Mars and coming here, and that would also explain why we still to this day have a 25-hour clock.
And it goes farther than that, and not to get off of the original story, but archaeologists are the most, especially institutional archaeologists, are very arrogant. They don't like to have to change their beliefs, but yet there is evidence upon evidence upon evidence of Egyptians being in South America, of Chinese being in America, of Israelites being in Ohio before recorded history. And they don't want to acknowledge this stuff, basically because of their egos. But yet all the evidence is there. The mines here in Michigan, the copper mine in the UP, they're just now starting to accept an idea that the copper from Michigan pretty much started the Bronze Age, the mining of the copper. And they're now starting to wonder if the Egyptians were the ones mining the copper up in Isle Royale, which is above the UP in the middle of a lake, middle of Lake Superior. So they're just now getting to this, but yet there's historical documents that suggest it that go way back to the ancient pyramids. Now, back to your story about the pilots, these sightings, you could scroll through the internet, and there's stories from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, every major conflict that has almost identical things happening. These white, fast fills, these B formations, and as this article points out, we really don't know the scope and the breadth of these sightings because none of the military, the Army, pilots in the Army won't talk to pilots in the Navy, won't talk to pilots in the Marines, won't talk to pilots in the Air Force. They won't combine all this information to find trends to see if it is something there, something we don't understand, and maybe even a threat.
Well, that's because I don't know of a way of saying this without offending people, because I do have a faith. I am a Christian, but I also firmly believe that there are things even about my faith that we don't necessarily understand. But I think part of what's caused this trepidation to kind of compare notes and try to see exactly what's going on, there's a firm belief in this country that if it's ever confirmed that there's life outside of this planet, then that means the Bible's a lie. And that's just the arrogance of man right there on its face. because the Bible says that he created us in his image. It doesn't say that we're the only ones that he created, though. As a matter of fact, we already know that's not true, because he created all of the angels and all of these other things that are described that are in heaven before he ever created us. So the idea that we could be his only creation just because it says that he made us in his image is asinine. But there's so many people that really believe that if it's ever proven that something else exists other than us, then religion has to, then the idea of Christianity as a whole, or pretty much any other religion, has to be a lie.
I personally think it's just the opposite. If we were to find out that there are beings outside of our spectrums that we can perceive, whether they be from this planet, whether they be from somewhere else, combined with the knowledge we have today, would clear up the exact meaning of the Old Testament, would probably clear up the exact meaning of the creation of mankind, and probably clear up any doubt that there is, yes, a God. You know, I think it's just the opposite, personally.
I mean, I do too, in a way, but I mean, at the same time, you know, there are a lot of, you know, the higher ups in faiths are entrenched in their own beliefs to the point where they're kind of like the archaeologists that you were talking about earlier. They know there's something to all of this, but they just refuse to even fathom the idea because it makes them question their own beliefs, which I don't understand. Because, I mean, the Bible is plain that we are not his only creation. So why we are so hung up with the fact that if there is something else out there, no matter where it comes from, that makes the Bible a lie, I never have understood that. But I don't know.
It's all politics.
Funny thing is, it all kind of does seem to come back to that. No matter what we're talking about, there's still a tinge of politics somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, that's what it all boils down to. And it's just like these UFOs. You know, somebody somewhere in the government is studying this stuff very, very closely. And think about it for a moment. It would behoove the United States government to be able to capture something flying around up there that we're not sure of, or shoot it down to study it or something like that, to get the technology to advance us. Now, there's a lot of theories out there that say, you know, we've already done it. I personally don't believe those theories. I personally believe that we've built on top of our technology to the point where we are today. And it's pretty amazing what we've done. However, you also look back through all of the ages, all of the eras, and they all happen across the globe, across the planet, at about the same time. Even though supposedly we weren't supposed to be able to communicate with each other, you know, in the Americas, we weren't supposed to be able to communicate with Africa. Africa wasn't supposed to communicate with Asia, but yet we all had pyramids. We all had similar drawings. We all had a lot of things in common. Why is that? You have to ask yourself. Now, was it because we've lost technology and we did all interact with each other up until a point that the Dark Ages interfered, and again, politics combined with religion, unfortunately, put us back centuries and made us dumb? Well, I can feel us heading that way again. And it's all arrogance because we refuse to actually open our minds and maybe accept or study things that we're not used to studying. Like, is there things outside of our spectrum that we don't see, we don't hear, we don't smell? You know, why does your dog all of a sudden freak out for no probable reason at all, looking at something in the corner, and it sends chills up your spine? Does that ever happen to you?
Oh, yeah, all the time. That's actually, you know, why during when we were doing the Red Wine Show, when I talked about, you know, when I really first started toying with the idea of doing a podcast, doing a show kind of like what the second half of this show has turned into, has always been something that I really thought about. And then I started realizing that I could probably make more of a difference if I focused on more everyday politics and things like that. But you know, this stuff has always fascinated me to the point where, again, just like when I'm turning on, you know, things and watching politics, it drives my wife crazy because I'll occasionally get in this mood where I'm turning on Ancient Aliens and everything else that I can find, and my wife's like, "Why are you watching this crap?" And I'm like, "Why are you not?" But you know.
I call it the Nerd Fest. And that's what my show, I do this for free. That's what that's turned into, basically a Nerd Fest. Technology, space, everything that I sit riveted to, throughout the day that doesn't have anything to do with politics. That's what I focus on, and I find it's refining more and more into that type of thing. But when you touched on this, it's like, hey, I hit on that. But, I've just been thinking a lot about it, and when you started talking about that during Red Wine, my brain was already going, even on the way to work after I uploaded the show to get it ready for tomorrow. My brain was already thinking, like, why do we have all of this stuff going on? There's so many reports, but yet we refuse to acknowledge it. We refuse to really study it seriously. And why is there no clear evidence? We have all these cell phones, all these cameras everywhere, but yet any type of photograph, any type of video is grainy, out of focus, and can't be seen. I have a lot of questions, and I don't have answers.
And that's actually part of the reason why, is we started talking tonight. I started toying with the idea because of the Red Wine show that's kind of an every other week thing right now. I usually do an America Off the Rails show after that one on Friday nights. And then I got to thinking about it. I was like, America Off the Rails is basically already on every Monday through Thursday. Instead of doing an extra one of those every 2 weeks, we could actually start taking a serious look at some of this stuff, because it would probably take me about 2 weeks worth of research to put together a decent hour and a half show on a Friday night to talk about this stuff. And now that you and I are doing it and actually having this conversation for nearly the last 30 minutes, I'm really thinking about just pulling the trigger on it and just having some fun with it every couple of weeks. Because the thing about it is, back to the title of the show, the truth is actually out there. And I am a firm believer that most of what we understand, if we were to put everything together, and do just like we were talking about with the military, if the Air Force and the Navy and all the people that have seen all these things would come together and actually pool resources, they would find out the truth of everything they understand is probably in the middle. We could do the same thing, because the truth of what we understand is probably somewhere in the middle.
And it may blindside us. It may be something we've never, ever thought of before. You constantly, and to get off subject just a little bit, you constantly read about giants, how giants roam the earth, the Nephilim. And I'm actually studying about the Nephilim right now. Usually, I've got an audio book, but I've also read a lot about Nephilim. And there's so many stories. There's Indian folklore of battles that have raged on with these giants in the United States. There's all this stuff. And then we have Bigfoot sightings. We have in, Washington, these creatures that we're not really sure what they are, but they're giant, they're hairy, and most of the time they got red hair. Are these the giants they were talking about? Are they just being elusive? Are they, nocturnal? Have found a way to elude everybody? We're arrogant. We like to think that we just know everything, that there's somebody out there that studies this stuff and knows it all. We don't. We find new species of animals every year. We find things that, archaeologists dig up ruins that completely destroy our history as we know it every year. But it doesn't surface. It doesn't get to the general public and get into our history books and say, hey, we're not really sure what happened during the time of the pyramids and before. We just don't know.
Yeah, we have and the thing about it is, again, for a good period of time, all of our histories were being passed down orally. If you've ever played the game of telephone, you know how dangerous that is.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. We've gone a little bit longer than I'd intended to, but I also know you're driving home, so I was giving you an excuse to keep talking. How far away from home are you?
I was just going to say, I'm actually getting out to the technology void that I call the southeast cornfield of Michigan. So I'm probably going to lose you in a moment. So I'll let you go, man. Great show, and I appreciate that. Hey, you're making me want to just, switch to days somehow and do the whole every other Friday show with you. That would be so cool, because it would be a nerd fest. Trust me.
Well, I mean, it's going to be on at around the same time, so if nothing else, you could just call in and we can do the last half.
You know, it works for me. It really does. We'll put our brains together, you know, and as long as I kind of know what we're talking about, I could get myself immersed in it and give you a call on the way home. That would be great.
That works for me. I'm still kind of toying with a name, so if you have any ideas, let me know. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let you go because you're starting to get a little staticky, so I'm pretty sure we're about to lose you any time now.
All right, thanks, Rick. Have a great night.
Take care, man. Thanks for calling in. It was fun. All right, so we are going to get out of here. We've actually carried over a bit past the bottom of the hour, top of the hour, and I actually hadn't planned on going this long, but it has solidified an idea, so I'm not sure if it's going to be 2 weeks from tonight or the following 2 weeks from tonight, but we will actually probably launch a paranormal style, you know, UFO, ghost, Bigfoot type show every other Friday night. I kind of shied away from the idea for a while because I had a host that was going to come on and do that type of show, and it was supposed to be called Freaky Fridays. You know, remember Claude that was with us for about a month or so, and then that just kind of fell apart. I'm not taking his show title idea, though. Honestly, I don't know. You guys are still listening. I'm kind of toying with something, you know, because Lou earlier, you know, had accidentally said Area 52. Then I was joking with her about, you know, there actually being an Area 52 possibly, and did she know something we didn't know? So I'm kind of thinking about that, along with, you know, that line from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where the answer to all of life's questions is the number 42. So I'm kind of thinking about maybe Area 42, kind of as a combination nod towards what got me interested in all this stuff in the first place, which was Area 51, and then the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But it is a work in progress, and that may not be what we land on. So we're going to get out of here for the night, because I've already done over 2 hours of radio, and I can feel my voice fading fast. I'm honestly surprised it held together as well as it did, because I had a frog come in about 15 minutes into the second hour, and I was like, oh, I'm going to die. But honestly, weirdly enough, you guys know I haven't felt good for like, actually it's probably getting closer to about 5 or 6 months at this point, and it just came on out of the middle of nowhere, and it was like one day I just woke up and I felt like crud, and it's like no matter what I've done, I haven't really been able to shake it. For about the last 3 or 4 days, I feel really, really good. I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's going away as quickly as it came on. Knock on wood and say some prayers for me that that's the truth, because I'm tired of having to take 14 pills just to be able to get up every day. Never mind. It's late. I was about to say something that proves my filter's gone, but we're going to get out of here for the night. Take care. God bless. We'll be back Monday night with America Off the Rails, and there may or may not be a morning update on Monday. I'm trying to get back to doing those again, too. Take care.